All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. So, if you've ever felt like you have these absolutely massive, incredible dreams, but then the literal second it's time to sit down and do the work, you just freeze up? Yeah, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking the fascinating psychology of people who are outwardly lazy, yet incredibly ambitious on the inside.
Why do you dream big but freeze when it's time to work? I really want you to think about this for a second, because our source speaks directly to this exact frustration. You can probably see yourself succeeding, right? You imagine that dream life so vividly, but then you just wait. You tell yourself, okay, tomorrow's going to be different. But then tomorrow comes, and boom, you end up in the exact same spot. It's an exhausting loop.
Which brings us to Section 1, the ambitious but lazy, the daily cycle of good intentions and guilt.
Now, if this sounds like you, let's just clear the air right off the bat. This doesn't mean you lack intelligence or talent. You're just trapped in a loop. Think about it. At 8 a.m., you wake up with the absolute best intentions. You're like, today is the day. But then, by 1 p.m., you've checked your phone, maybe scrolled for a bit, and suddenly, wow, half the day is gone. You push your goals off until later, then 11 p.m. rolls around, you're lying in bed feeling just awful and guilty, promising yourself, I swear, tomorrow will change. It's a deeply draining cycle built entirely on fleeting motivation.
Moving on to Section 2, the psychology of avoidance. It is not laziness, it is survival mode.
See, right now, there's a literal tug-of-war happening inside your head. You're living in a constant state of internal conflict. On one side, you've got your dreaming brain. It wants to achieve great things, it sets big goals, it vividly imagines success. But on the other side, your survival brain, and it just wants safety. It seeks ease and actively avoids effort and failure. This is exactly why you might be staring at a blank Google Doc, only to suddenly decide that actually, right now is the absolute perfect time to vacuum the ceiling. Your survival brain is winning, not because you're weak, but because human psychology is naturally hardwired to avoid pain and seek pleasure.
So let's redefine this entirely. Laziness isn't a character flaw. It's an avoidance mechanism. It's triggered by your brain to protect you from the short-term threats of effort, uncertainty, and failure. When you scroll on your phone, you get this quick hit of dopamine. You feel a little better, the discomfort fades away, and without even meaning to, you teach your brain that avoiding your goals actually feels rewarding.
But here is the real danger, and I'm going to give you a little tough love here. By choosing short-term comfort over action, you are teaching your brain that your dreams do not matter. Every single day you avoid your goals, you're literally stealing your own long-term happiness. You're reinforcing this false, lingering belief that you just aren't good enough, and that creates a cycle that gets harder and harder to break.
And that leads right into Section 3, the perfectionism trap, fear disguised as excellence.
We constantly tell ourselves we're just waiting for the perfect plan or the ideal conditions. But let's tear that myth down right now. Perfectionism is just fear disguised as excellence. It's a clever excuse your brain uses to never start, so you can never fail. I mean, it's not about having high standards. The uncomfortable truth here, you're just afraid. You're afraid that if you actually try and it doesn't work out, you might have to face the reality that your ideas aren't as good as they seemed, or that maybe you aren't as special as you thought. Honestly, it's just so much safer to stay in the fantasy.
But consider this quote. Failure is not the opposite of success. Inaction is. When you fail, you actually learn something, right? When you do nothing, you learn absolutely nothing. Every single successful person you admire has failed way more times than you've even tried. Why? Because they took imperfect action well before they ever felt ready.
Which brings us to Section 4, systems over motivation. Stop waiting to feel like it.
Here's the hard truth. You are probably never going to wake up just bursting with energy and excitement to do hard things. Motivation? That's just a temporary feeling that comes and goes. You cannot build a life on a feeling. Discipline, however, is a solid structure built one small decision at a time. Rewiring your brain requires taking action even when, actually, scratch that, especially when you do not feel like it. That is how you teach your brain that discomfort isn't dangerous. That's how you build the muscle of discipline.
And how do you support that discipline? By changing your environment. Put your phone in another room, clean your desk, set a specific time for focused work, close all those unnecessary browser tabs, and remove non-essential items. Successful people don't magically have more willpower than you. They just have way better environmental design. They completely remove the temptations. Every time you remove a distraction, you save a decision. And that saved energy, it goes directly towards your actual goals.
Next up, Section 5, action over information. Stop learning and start executing.
Look,
endlessly consuming videos about success and podcasts about productivity, it feels like progress, doesn't it? But it is often just another incredibly clever trick your brain uses to avoid actual work. You do not need more information. You already know what you need to do. Learning is not the same as doing. Our source strongly urges you to start with just one incredibly small task. Don't try to change your entire life overnight. That's just your perfectionism talking again. Just work for 15 minutes, write one single paragraph, make one phone call. Just do it, and then do it again tomorrow.
Your very first attempt at anything is going to be terrible. And you know what? That is perfectly normal. Like the quote says, every masterpiece started as a rough draft. You aren't trying to be great right now. You're literally just trying to start. The only goal right now is pure consistency. The quality, that comes later.
Now for Section 6, Forgiveness and Momentum, Breaking the Cycle of Shame.
Because progress is never a straight line, you have to learn to separate your identity from your habits. Let's be real, you're going to mess up. You'll fall back into old patterns. But the absolute key difference between success and failure is not letting one bad day turn into a bad week. Just look at this breakdown. Who you are, someone with big dreams, filled with potential, and completely capable of change. What you have been doing, avoiding discomfort, seeking safety, waiting for motivation. Being lazy is not who you are. It is simply a behavioral pattern that you've been stuck in.
And to break that pattern, you absolutely have to let go of the shame. Guilt does not motivate you. Shame does not make you better. You need to practice self-compassion. Beating yourself up over a wasted afternoon only makes the whole problem worse. Forgiveness is vital here. And it isn't about letting yourself off the hook, okay? It's about giving yourself permission to try again tomorrow without carrying around that heavy, paralyzing weight of your past failures.
Because it ultimately comes down to this. Ambition without action is just fantasy. Wishing is not going to build the life you want. You need a careful balance. You need the discipline to take action even when you really don't feel like it, and the compassion to forgive yourself when you inevitably fall short. That combination, that is the absolute secret to lasting change.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question. What is the one small, imperfect step you will take today? Seriously, I challenge you. The very moment this explainer ends, close this screen and go do that one small thing. Stop planning, stop waiting for motivation to strike, and start building the life you've been imagining, one imperfect action at a time.